You dickhead, you got shanked up, you pussy, look at your back. Dickhead.
In 2019, knife crime in London has increased by 80% than in 2014, with over 43,500 knife-related offences.
It has a long serrated blade and is increasingly popular on Britain's inner city streets.
It's all about keeping knife crime at the centre of our national conversation.
Police numbers are being slashed, even as the knives pile up.
Oh my God.
When there are further cuts being made to councils, to youth services, to our police, it means every day another young person potentially losing their life.
3 17-year-olds were killed.
A boy of 16 found dying on the estate.
Knife crime is now one of the greatest challenges facing police forces across the country. In fact, the knife is Britain's #1 murder weapon.
In recent years, there's been a spike in knife-related incidents in the UK. Little is heard about those who are left behind to cope with the tragic loss of family members. The real implications of violent deaths are rarely voiced, and little has been heard from those touched by the tragedy. In East London, an organisation formed by Courtney Barrett called Binning Knives Saves Lives works closely with the community, using knife amnesty bins to get these deadly weapons off the streets.
Hi guys, we're in Leytonstone on Cattle Estate where gangs are known to reside. We're going door to door, trying to get as many knives out of circulation as possible and spread as much awareness as possible. This is Leytonstone in East London, yeah? Last week, for example, we was out for 4 hours. We collected 61 knives. The week before, we was out for 4 hours. We collected 102 knives. I think everyone should feel less safe at the moment. We're living in a very unsafe environment in society now. There's all kinds of people carrying weapons. The media highlight the use when it comes to crime and knife crime, but the facts are most knife crimes committed by over 18-year-olds. When the police do a knife arch outside a train station, for example, you wouldn't believe the people that are carrying knives. We need more police officers. The few police that you see around can only do so much. It's part of the reason why we've got to this stage in our society. We definitely need more police. As you can see on my T-shirt, more police, less knives.
Critics say cutbacks in police numbers have left many neighbourhoods at risk. Joseph Cullimore was stabbed in the chest by a 16-year-old with a history of mental illness, and he died of his injuries. Joseph's mother recalls the dreadful day her son was murdered.
My son was visiting a friend and he left his tobacco and his phone behind. He saw the light in the flat still, so he went back, knocked at the door to get his baccy and his phone, and he never came out. His friend's son killed him. He was strangled, he was beaten around the head, and as he lay dying on the floor, we understand, according to the boy's statement, that he decided to get a knife and finish him off and put him out of his misery. He actually said that voices in his head told him, as Joe had left the house, you should have killed him. That's basically all we know about what happened in the flat. You don't expect to knock at the door at 5 o'clock in the morning and telling you your son had been murdered, literally round the corner from where he lived. I'm angry that, he's gone, he's devastated the whole family, and he's got 6 years for it. He got 6 years, which means he'll be out in 3. He would not talk to the psychiatrists. He was in a high security mental hospital for 9 months. And then, obviously, because the judge had no proof that he had any mental health issues, he sent him to a young offenders thing. And it was assessed that he'd come back to high to medium risk to do it again. And I'm sure he will, because he was so cold and callous about the whole situation. And in court, he just laughed the whole time.
Mum, someone sold me a lie. The streets are not home. These were just a few of the words written by Margaret Bankhole's son in her book called My Story. She's a practicing barrister who works closely with the families of victims. She helps heal them emotionally and overcome their traumatic experiences.
The book's called My Story, but then is it really my story? So that kind of intrigues people. Am I talking about myself? Am I talking about my son? One of my sons developed a family outside his normal family. His family was on the streets and they became more important to him than his natural family. He followed his friends, or he was a part of what his friends were doing, and it meant that we were going down the road to his friend's house because his friend lived down the road, and there will be 9 or more boys in his friend's house. And then we were going a bit further to the police station and then to court, and then he ended up in the highest court of the land. So he got stabbed and then he was sent to prison. So that kind of shook me because I didn't expect that to happen. So I said to my husband, I'm going to write a book, because I was going through a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. The whole family was going through a lot of pain and trauma. And the book was kind of therapeutic, because I was saying to God, all this pain can't be for me. And he said, no, it's so that you can understand what the young boys are going through.
Councillor Mehdi Koban is frustrated with what appears to be the unstoppable epidemic of knife crime, and says the government and police have to do more.
So I think there's a systematic change that needs to happen. So in terms of what the council or the government or the Mayor of London needs to do, it needs to be really putting more money back into to youth services. And this is me getting a bit political, but the government since 2010 has shut down more than 600 youth centres across the UK, has shut down a lot of, has removed a lot of youth provision away from sort of people that need it most. So the problem that you have now is that you've got this big growing social problem, but you haven't got enough money to actually deal with it. I could have easily ended up as one of those young people too. I was brought up next to Pembury Estate, which was known as one of the most worst gangs in London. So I don't think there's any excuse for carrying a knife. I think you've got to think about your family, your future, and ultimately you're responsible for your decisions. But as I said earlier, I think that's the easy thing to say. I think there is a wider systematic problem around poverty linked to knife crime.
With cuts in government spending, it's clear the police lack the resources to combat the ongoing surge of knife crime.
In London alone, I think in 2017 there were 87 fatal stabbings. In 2018 there were 77 fatal stabbings, and again Southwark and this time Hackney were high crime areas involving knife incidents. This year, 2019, in London, there's been over 110 incidents involving knives, and more than half of them have already become fatal stabbings. So at the moment, statistics show it's fluctuating, and hopefully it will come down. A few years ago, Metropolitan Police went through a massive cost-cutting exercise. So it meant that any premises, any police premises that involved high risk, high cost maintenance, they were subsequently closed down. So where some boroughs had somewhere in the region of 2 to 3 police stations, now every borough has at least 1 police station.
Start at the top and go down, yeah. Got another road down here as well. Thank you, that's good, man. It all goes towards good cause. Thank you.
Okay,
the bin's over there, so I'm going to stick it in my jacket to get over there. Cheers, my man. Take care, stay safe, yeah? Cool. Now we're making our way to Langthorne Park. We're going to search the park for any weapons. A lot of kids hide their knives in parks and certain places now, so we go around parks sometimes looking for knives. If they feel like they need it, they know where to go and get it instead of carrying a knife on them.
The psychological consequences of knife-related incidents can be distressing for all. All too often, those left behind struggle to come to terms with the loss of a loved one in such violent circumstances.
There are many families in trauma, and it's become like a norm. So people are just turning the page. It's not affecting them in the way that it should do. Trauma is subjective, and society needs to look at this. Not only must we do something, we must do something now. It's not healthy to have so many people traumatized. The only time you see them on TV is when they're crying. And then the cameras move away from that family. But that family is living that trauma for years. Everyone connected with a child that dies or goes into prison is living with trauma. I think if they could take these young people aside and speak to them one-to-one, about what they've seen, how they're feeling, why they feel they need to carry a knife. Is it going to bring back their lost friend? And then get a group of them together and go through the same exercise, and then get their parents together with them to understand what they're going through. Then maybe we could crack this thing. Maybe we can bring an end to young people dying on these streets.
So about 2 months ago, I I came across an incident in Stratford where I saw young black boys being targeted for stop and search. We have something called Section 60, so when there is an incident in an area, it means that the police can carry out stop and search on their discretion. In that particular incident that I saw in Stratford, it was like the third time they back-to-back stopped young black boys. So I went up to them to ask them, you know, what was the reason for them to stop these boys, and they were saying to me, you know, that they feel like they need to stop people getting stabbed, so that's why they're stopping and searching these people specifically, which I thought was, of course, ridiculous, because, you know, that's assuming that every single young black person is likely to commit crime. So I put out a tweet about it, which went quite viral, and of course, like, I got a lot of abuse for it, because a lot of people believe that, you know, we should have more stop and search in order to stop knife crime. I think that, you know, stop and search can be extremely dangerous in really eroding that community trust, and I don't think that that's the answer to stopping knife crime. What should happen really is there should be more diverse police officers from those communities who those communities can actually trust. So when there are, like, sort of, there is a conversation, they don't feel like they're being targeted.
Four of you for a minor. Oh, come on, man. If that was a white boy, that wouldn't be happening. I don't care what you lot got to say.
Obviously, the public feel that powers like stop and search may be used disproportionately. However, generally in the police force, it's a very important tool for us to use in finding things like prohibited items such as knives or weapons or even drugs.